Hello and welcome to the Tea Party Hardy channel for a review of Cobra Kai Season 3 with a look back at Season 1 and 2. For your information, I just watched all 3 seasons in the last 48 hours, so I am coming at it from a perspective of seeing them all together. This is my first viewing in the last 48 hours to see them all, so I will not have the perspective of somebody who's seen Season 1, had the gap, Season 2 saw the gap, and Season 3. So do keep that in mind with this review. Also, Season 1 and Season 2 were on YouTube Red, and Season 3 is on Netflix. What happened to YouTube Red? Is it dead? If you know, please put the answer in the comment, because I really don't know. Okay, so, the TV show Cobra Kai. Based on the Karate Kid movies, of course. And you have the story of Daniel-san, Johnny, and eventually Kreese. No spoilers there. Because he's in the picture, so there you go. In the very first episode, you are introduced to Daniel and his modern life, and a little bit of Johnny's. In episode 2, season 1, you therefore get to see life from what Johnny's up to. As the show unfolds through season 1, 2, and 3, you get a full-fledged account of what happened to Johnny in the olden days, and Daniel in the olden days, and probably the most fun part of the show is when they show you Johnny's perspective of how Daniel treated him. And because we already know how Daniel thinks Johnny treated him because that was the movies. So it's really fun. And when I was a kid, I was hoping, I really hope someday they'll do Star Wars through Darth Vader's eyes, which they kind of did. Whereas this one, no. They really do it through Johnny's eyes. And it's wonderful writing and everything else. Okay, so what took me so long to get to this show? Well, when it first came out, Jeremy over at Geeks and Gamers like, you gotta see this, it's so great. It shows the way that you treat characters from the past and make them grow and introduce the newbies. Many people echoed that, so let me echo that as well. Totally true. Fantastic remembrance of the show. Complete reverence and dignity given to the characters. Well done indeed. And at the time that Jeremy was making the fuss, it was in contrast to the hideous exhibition that was the Star Wars Disney trilogy that just completely destroyed the Star Wars brand and never gave us our opportunity to see Han, Luke, and Leia together. And the idea that they made Han a deadbeat dad and a divorced couple is just, wow. Just only to be matched with The Last Jedi with what Luke does to get milk and sustenance. Holy mackerel. Okay, back to Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai, Critical Drinker, who all of you know, he did his long-form review a couple of days ago, and that's finally what pushed me over the edge. Plus, everybody at work's like, have you seen Cobra Kai? Have you seen Cobra Kai? I'm like, fine, I'll watch Cobra Kai. Only because it's a holiday weekend, so I have time. So, yippee. All right, so I watched the review that the Drinker brought up, and his friends that were on that review, they kept saying over and over, the interjection of the comedy at points of insane tension is done fantabulously. Completely agree. If you haven't heard that already, I'm glad you're hearing it from somebody, because the most tense moments are done with the best comedy in this show. And Steve Martin said, and probably plenty before him, but nonetheless, he's the one that pointed out, you can't have great drama without great comedy in the same story. And this show does it just... You can't do it any better than this show. The writing in that regard, full-fledged awesomeness. Okay, now, everybody loved Season 1, and I do too. There are those who didn't like Season 2. They didn't like the way the kids were played out. I have no problems with Season 2. I thought Season 2 was just fine, and zero complaints about Season 2. And then Season 3, many people are saying it's just as good as Season 1. I liked Season 3. The development and ongoing stories with Johnny and Daniel were done just as fantabulous as Season 1 and 2. Loved it. And then there's the Kreese issue. Kreese is the fellow on the right of the screen. In Season 3, we get to get his backstory. Well, my problem with his backstory starts with he was the least foundational character in the movies. He wasn't quite a MacGuffin, but he did serve the purpose of moving the story forward for being a grouch. Well, in season 3, they decide to show us his backstory, which again isn't founded on the movies because they didn't do it. So you've got new writers taking on his story, whereas the new writers are taking on the legacy that was Daniel and Johnny's story. And they used the trick, which I loved, of seeing it through the different angles. The history going through Johnny's eyes instead of Daniel's eyes. And done very, very well. Whereas Kree's story, they have to fill it in. And while many people love season 3 as much as season 1, and I really enjoyed season 3, don't get me wrong, but every part of the story that involves Kree's story, not the actor, he does fine, it's the writing, how these writers can do such brilliant work with Daniel, Johnny, and I think the kids, and Kree's story is just horrible. It's just awful. There's no part of Kree's story that doesn't feel like a soap opera. And if you watch soap operas, or did watch soap operas, you would know that they have to move the characters in heavily manipulated ways for different things in real life that interfere with the script and stuff like that. Or they're just stumped and they need to get the ball rolling, and it's really forced and you can always tell. And you just, you take the good with the bad. But this is not a soap opera. It didn't need to be done that way. But they apparently disagree, or they just couldn't think their way through out of it. So no, I do not like any of Kree's involvement. In the story, in season 1, 2, and 3, the karate fighting, with a few examples, really works and does well from a realistic point of view of like, oh yeah, that's the way it would unfold. There is the scene where the entire cast and half the school are karate fighting in a high school fight scene. And that would have been a scene where, hey, to do the comedy, and they probably just couldn't get it to happen. But it's like, if they would have played the song, everybody was kung fu fighting, oh, it so would have worked there. And it's like, it's hard to watch the scene without hearing that in your head anyways, but it would have been a nice cherry on top to actually have it happen. Whereas there are several songs by Queen used in the show, so apparently they got the rights to do that, so yay. But nonetheless, it was really lacking in not having that everybody was kung fu fighting in the karate scene during the high school fight. Now, there are other things in the show, excuse me, that happen occasionally, about once, maybe twice a season, where the fighting feels very much like the TV show The Hulk, which I loved, by the way. But in The Hulk, they had to come up with a reason every week to either hurt David Banner or make him very angry. And you wouldn't like him when he's very angry. Yeah, you would, and that's what everybody watches for. They don't watch for David Banner. They watch to see the Hulk beating people up and stuff. So, yeah, there's a couple of times in the show where, oh my gosh, when Daniel goes to Johnny's house and busts in the door and they start karate fighting, like, no, that's completely forced and fake, and hate it. And there's a couple of other times where, I won't tell them to you, if you've watched the show, you know which ones I'm talking about, where, really? You're going to fight there? No, just, But the rest of the show makes up for it. But it does hurt the show when you're like, you had to put a karate fight in there, and in particularly when Daniel goes to Johnny's house and he has that fight. By the end of season 1, it is so solidified that Daniel and Johnny should be best friends now. It's there. When you see the season, you know what I'm talking about. There's no excuse for them not to become best friends, except for the writers shoving that excuse in. And it is very shoved in, and that's where the show, not just Kreese, that's where the show starts going soap opera, when it does. Now again, I've already said all of Kreese's stuff is soap opera. So even in the elements that aren't Kreese, you have time and time again where they have Johnny and Daniel become good friends, or have good friend moments, let's put it that way. And then they turn around, sometimes on a dime, and again, it's on that dime that it's forced, to create the tension back between them. It's like, oh, just, no. If you remember in Back to the Future 2, it used that plot device where the bad guy had the sports book, and they kept trying to get the sports book from him, and they kept missing. All of those shows that use the trope of the just misses, the near misses, and that's the whole basis of that particular show, and it was the basis of Back to the Future 2, is to get that book back. I can't stand that trope. And this is almost the same dynamic where they just miss becoming perfect friends by insert your soap opera maneuver here. Now, does that drag down the show? Yeah, but does it make me not like the show? It makes me not like the show then, because it is frustrating. I understand you can't make them best friends because that's the end of the show, and it's no different than when Fox and Mulder Scully and Fox got married and had a kid, and suddenly that's all been erased. You know, the whole thing of couples coming together on shows, it kills the dynamic. And it's the same thing here. The couple is Johnny and Daniel. Okay, now about the kids. In season 1, you had Asia, however she says her name. In the first couple of episodes, she was unbelievably used as a checkbox trope device. She's fat, she's black, she wears glasses, they made her look like a nerd. They did all this stuff to humiliate her. I'm like, oh, because we haven't seen that a billion times. But as the show went on in season 1, they developed her character and actually let her be a real character. And she became quite interesting at that point. Not particularly, several times. I won't even do a particular. It's just, she really does. She becomes a very good character. There's also the goofy black guy who switches sides, and he, as an actor, he's very charismatic because you really want to see more of him. And both of those black actors just kind of disappear from the show eventually. I'm like, where'd they go? There's a lot of that going on with the kids, where they will introduce important characters of the kids, and they just kind of go away. Now, the way the show works is they'll bring them back and drop them in like birdseed to keep you following the path here and there. Because there was a point in season 3 where it's like, where'd the kids go entirely? And then all of a sudden they show up for another one of those, like, really? You're going to fight now? Like this? And then the ending of that fight? Oh my God, please just... You have to take the good with the bad, I guess. And so that's how that goes. But there are definitely some of the kid characters that just vanished that were really important at the beginning and didn't stop being important, but still vanished anyways. I'm guessing budget or whatever. And you got season 3, which I'm guessing was filmed during the pandemic lockdowns. So maybe that... some of the scenes look like they were filmed in Canada, because that's how you deal with that. You should just go to Canada, where it's completely fine. They've been filming up there nonstop. And I've got the Christmas movies to prove it. Okay. So I don't know how they did that. I know on some of the other shows that are coming out now that were filmed during the lockdown, and I've made a video about that with the Mr. Mayor reviews, all dedicated to that idea, where they're just, God, no wonder LA is filled with 33% of the people in LA now have the cootie, because Hollywood is back in action and they're sitting 2 inches apart at most, not an exaggeration. Okay, different idea, but historically that'll be relevant for this video review. All right, other things to interject. The relationship between Daniel and his wife, done fantastically and very realistically. It's some of the foundational realism of the show. Johnny's story plays out just the most beautiful writing and acting I've ever seen of a realistic take on it. And the apex of that is in the episode where Johnny and Daniel get to meet up with somebody they've been hankering to see for quite a while. And the way that particular episode unfolds, I've never seen better writing than in that episode, or acting. It's done superbly. And for those who have grown up with the Karate Kid instead of Cobra Kai, in other words, the older folk, it's hard to watch that episode and not fall madly in love with that episode. Because, like the show says, I just took a time machine. And you can't do it any better. It was really absolutely fantastic. Now, if you're a fan of my channel, you might be thinking, are you talking about the Christmas episode? Yes. To which you might also say, if you're a fan of my channel, to say, but we know you love Christmas movies and you're insanely biased. Yep, caught me. It's true. But I still think people that aren't insanely in love with Christmas movies like I am will still have the same reaction. to that episode if you grew up with the Karate Kid, not Cobra Kai. Because Cobra Kai, you don't have that whole, you're all about the kids. So fine, good for you. But for those of us who did grow up with the Karate Kid, dang, that episode was, wow, that was good. It was really good. Probably because there was barely any Kreese in it as far as I can remember, because I block him out. Again, not the actor's fault. And a little stunned at how the writers can do everything else so perfect, but the Kreese stories are just so soap opera. All right, so that's the relationship with Daniel and his wife. As far as the stuff with all the unbelievable conveniences that happens when he's in Japan to bring back old characters, yeah, it was overly convenient. Whereas the incident on the Christmas episode, no, that was, it's pretty hard to imagine that not happening. So very different dynamics in how they played that out. Also, the one where they go to Japan with the enemy of Daniel returning and how that played out, that was kind of fun. It was very TV. It wasn't very real, but it was fun. It worked. Okay, I think that's everything. Oh, I know what I should say. If you haven't seen season 1, 2, and 3, and you're kind of like, well, overall, come on, Tea Party Hardy, tell me the end line. Season 1, everybody agrees, is perfect. Season 2, a lot of people don't like it because the kids. I am not in that category. I thought season 2 was absolutely fine. I have no problem with season 2, not including the Kreese stuff. And then season 3, many people think season 3 is as good as season 1. I love season 3 for the Johnny and Daniel stories. I cannot stand the involvement of the Kreese stories because every time he gets involved, it just gets stupider and dumber. Or do we say dumber and dumberer? I don't know, whatever you prefer. One more time, not a slight on the actor. He's doing fine. These brilliant writers go brain dead when it comes to Kreese and just use all of the cheap tricks instead of the other stuff. It's like you've got the most premium chocolate you can imagine in Daniel and Johnny's story, and then you get, I don't know, pick the nastiest, cheapest brand of chocolate, and that's what happens to the writers when they go to Kreese. They're like, we'll just use that one. No, go back to the really, really, really good chocolate. I guess I'm going to get hungry doing this review. All right, what else? I think that's it. I need to get back to doing my political reviews coming up today. For those of you that are new to my channel, hey, welcome. And yeah, this channel does a lot of reviews of movies and TV shows and politics. It's mostly a politic channel, but sometimes there's stuff going on in politics that just don't know how they're going to end, so don't want to cover them because I don't like speculating. And yeah, so that's how that happens. But anyways, we do thank you for watching very much. And when you do get some time to watch all 3 seasons, if you haven't, highly recommend it. And even though I really tore apart season 3 for Kreese's character, you can come to your own conclusion because lots of people seem to have no problem with it. I'm not in that category, but I don't think it's a reason to avoid the show at all. I think you should absolutely watch it because Johnny and Daniel's stuff that they reveal is gold. It's pure gold and it's good stuff. Okay, so all that being said, thank you for watching and we will see you in the future.